So that was Battle Hymn of the Republic. It was a common song in a lot of USCT troops and really motivating for a lot of the black troops. So my name's Steve Thomas. I'm with the 6th United States Colored Troops, and I'm the fife major, kind of stand-in drum major, and I'm going to tell you about the field music of the Civil War and how it affected black troops. So to start off, this is the fife. This one right here is a Clews Crosby preferred model. It's made in 1871 out of ebony wood. I would show you there's an inscription right here with a G and a C, and it has the Crosby over it. And that's how you can tell that it's a Clews Crosby. It's kind of faded out. It's over 100 years old. But, if I meet you in person, I'll happily show it to you. It's made out of ebony wood, and it has a cork up here. And you blow into this larger blowhole here. There's 7 holes altogether. And the sound will vibrate inside, and depending on your fingerings, will make different noises. This instrument was used as early, I believe it was something like maybe 900 AD China was found, and was then taken by the Scottish or the Irish, and then taken by the British, and then taken by Americans for the use of war. So not only was it used for war, but it was also used for entertainment. And, a lot of black people off plantations at the time were already musicians and transferred this over, as well as it was more popular of an instrument to play around the house as well. So I'll play you a couple songs, and I'll get to talking more about different parts of field music. So this song here is called The Girl I Left Behind Me. And what's significant to me about this song is it was originally taken, I believe it was an Irish string song taken by the British. But when it got to America, you have to remember that our military was only maybe about 100 years old when you get to the Civil War. And then our field music, nobody really knew what to do, what was going on. And we were also in this kind of, revolutionary change in communication in the military. So the reason the fifes and drums were used was because the fife is going to be a lot higher than the sound of a drum. So when there's gunfire going on, you can hear the higher frequency through the gunfire to send messages. As where the drum might have been used for left bass, right bass, and many other different drills, the fife could be used for songs during an actual battle so that people knew what to do. However, like I said, there was a lot of confusion going on, and not everybody knew, and not everybody was cohesive and together. So this song here, there's a story where a regiment is at battle, and 2 companies know the song for 2 different things. So one is charge and one is to retreat. So when they play it, one starts charging, the other retreats, and there's a whole bunch of confusion. They end up losing the battle. But this is a song. So, anyway, they play the song, and like I said, one retreats, one goes in, they lose the battle. Now, there are other ways that other songs that were played. There's, your reveille, there's tap 2, there's calls for eating lunch, and they're played on a variety of instruments during the Civil War. So, you have the fife. You also have the drum. Now, this is a rope tension drum. So there's a rope tension drum, uses calfskin heads on both sides. Use what's called the ears to tighten the ropes. And this one specifically was actually redone by Eric Lychek and was given to us from a USC pastor down in Lusty. And Eric put original Civil War snares on it. So it's pretty exciting to see, how history is still used today. You also have the bugle, which most people are more familiar with for communications and calls. So the bugle kind of comes in around the War of 1812, and it's starting to get used more during the Civil War. This is where you're going to hear your taps, your reveille that we're all pretty much used to. Now, I haven't practiced, but I'll try to give you a brief idea of reveille and taps. So that's the rough version of Reveille that we know today. Now, I don't actually know by memory the Reveille on the fife, but this is how things got confused between companies. So during the Civil War, before that, we had a camp at West Point for musicians. As you can imagine, a lot of musicians died very quickly during the Civil War. Also, what was interesting was you have a lot of musicians who have to be trained very quickly. And people get confused about the idea that a lot of these musicians were just young boys. Because there is, there's a story of a boy called the Drummer Boy of Shiloh. And pretty much he's an 8-year-old that runs away from home. And he ends up with the army. And he doesn't want to, he pretty much wants to be part of the army. And he won't leave him alone. And so they say, all right, well, we'll give him a drum. This was not something that normally happened. Normally, musicians were at least about 16 before they ended up in battle. Well, that was the goal. Also, so these are also boys who are being trained from probably about the age of 12. Okay, but they're not going into the actual military instantly. So what ends up happening is you get these stories about this 8-year-old and, people think it's more exciting than it really is. That's not really how it goes. So the British said it takes about 5 years to train a proficient musician, and the French said it takes about 10 years to train a proficient musician in battle. Reasoning wise, because you have a lot of different types of songs, you have a lot of different calls and things like that, hundreds, literally, and like I said, I don't know them all. And to become a drum major, you need to be able to know them all on the drum, the fife, and the bugle, so you're able to train other people, which is why I'm only a fife major, because I can train almost everything on the fife. But it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of musicianship and a lot of skill. So with that, I'll play you one of my favorite songs. This is called Ashworth's Quickstep, and it's from the War of 1812. So another thing that I talk about a lot is an escaped slave named Tobias Trout. And the reason I do is because he's actually the only guy that I've seen in a picture who's USCT with a fife. So Tobias Trout runs away, I believe, in 1864 from North Carolina, and he's written down as a farmer. And he runs away from North Carolina, and mind you, this is on foot, and there's a lot of woods and trees back then. You can't stay on open roads. And he goes through by way of Ohio into New York to join the New York USCT. So about a year into his military experience, Tobias Trout ends up at Louverture Hospital in Alexandria, Virginia. And what ends up happening there is he has gangrene of the lungs. So a lot of learning fifers and new musicians will use what's called a cheater piece on their fife, which helps them with the embouchure, because it can be very tough for somebody new to get this down, as well as learning all the fingerings and the notes. And then once you get into reading music. So a big thing with field musicians as opposed to band musicians is everything is memorized. We don't get to walk around with music, and we also have to learn the music in a very quick amount of time. If you meet up with another regiment and you meet with their drum major and the highest ranking musician says this is what we play for this, and you don't know it, quickly you have to try to learn this music. It's a lot of this stuff is on the fly. People are dying, and you need to be pretty adaptable as far as a soldier and being a musician at the same time. So Tobias Trout ends up using this cheater piece and ends up getting gangrene in the lungs. These cheater pieces were made of lead. Now, I'm no doctor, but I'm going to assume that sucking on lead all day was not very healthy for his lungs. So he ends up in this hospital. And what's happening in the hospital at the time is they're not burying the USCT troops with the white troops. And so they were running their own funerals, and about 8 guys who were supposed to be taking out this casket said that they would not take it unless they were buried with the white troops because they were soldiers. So I think it went on for a couple of days, and them holding out, they actually ended up winning. And it's one of the very little known civil rights fights that was made that, they fought on, and they were very successful. So yeah, Tobias Trout, I believe, was about 31 at the time. And what's even more interesting is he enlisted on my birthday. So I think it's pretty cool. Not that special to real history, but cool for me. So here's another song. It's called Helena Wabash. It's pretty popular. All right, so that's one of my favorites. Let's see. And I'll play you When Johnny Comes Marching Home. We'll go through a couple of different songs that popular in the period. Alright, and I'll also play you Gary Owen. Alright, wait, how much time am I at now? Okay. Alright, well, with that, I'll close it up. I'll play you some taps on the bugle. Hopefully it's not horrendous. And thank you for your time.